So in the last class, we have studied about the history of the pharmacology. So in today's class, we will study about certain common definitions or terminologies which are used in pharmacology. And here, I will try to explain the definitions of commonly used the terms in pharmacology and in subsequent classes also. So as the classes goes by, so you will also come across the new terms related to the pharmacology, and these definitions are terminologies. So I picked up from the HS Sandhu book, and there are some extra additions also. So the first term is the pharmacology as such. So what do you mean by pharmacology? See, pharmacology is a study which deals with all the aspects of the knowledge that is pertaining to a drug. So, what are all the aspects of the drug? So, it includes right from the source of the drug, drug development, its physical and chemical properties, biochemical and physiological effect, mechanism of action, absorption, distribution, biotransformation, excretion, therapeutic and other uses, and adverse effect. So ABCD about drugs so deals with all the aspect or all the knowledge that is pertaining to the drug. So that study we call it as pharmacology. See, pharmacology, it is derived from the word pharmakon. So pharmakon refers to drug and logos is the study. So pharmakon is a drug and logos is the study. So the study about drug is called as the pharmacology. So to take an example, the paracetamol, the basic drug that we use to alleviate the fever. See the source of the paracetamol. See the source of the paracetamol. Paracetamol was accidentally discovered when the physicians were using phenacetin drug. So phenacetin, it was originally used by the physician. So accidentally they discovered the paracetamol, which is a metabolite of the phenacetin. But the side effects associated with paracetamol is less when compared with the phenacetin. So that's how the paracetamol was discovered. So that is the source of the paracetamol. Drug development. So how the paracetamol is developed. So in the laboratory setup. So how it is, how the discovery was made. So what are the effects of the paracetamol, whether there are certain useful effects of the paracetamol or whether adverse effects are there related to the paracetamol, and the preclinical studies, the clinical studies, that all comes under the drug development stage. Then the physical and chemical properties. So what is the physical property of a paracetamol? So what are the chemical properties? So paracetamol, basically it is a salicylic acid. So this physical and chemical properties of a drug. Then biochemical and physiological effects. So what are the effects produced by the paracetamol? It will decrease the temperature of the body. So physiological effects. So any other biochemical effects produced by the paracetamol on the body. Then its mechanism of action. So how it acts, the paracetamol? It acts by inhibiting the cyclooxygenase enzyme. Then related to the absorption, when you take the paracetamol tablet, so how it's going to absorb, how much amount of paracetamol gets absorbed from the body, then how much gets distributed into the body, and the biotransformation, the metabolism of the paracetamol, how much amount of paracetamol in the body gets metabolized, then how much of that metabolite excreted out of the body, and the therapeutic and other uses. So what are the uses related to the paracetamol, and the adverse effect. So any adverse effect when you use paracetamol in the body. So the study about all these things related to a drug, we call it as pharmacology. The second term is the chemotherapy. What do you mean by chemotherapy? So chemotherapy, in a common notion, so what we think is chemotherapy is related to the treatment of a cancer. So it is not like that. So chemotherapy, yes, it is used in that notion also, but in general, chemotherapy is a study of drugs which selectively inhibit or destroy the specific agents of the disease. So what are the specific agents of the disease? So it might be bacteria, virus, fungus, or the parasite. So the agents which are used to inhibit or the destroy the specific agents. If it is used against bacteria, we call it as antibacterials. Against viral, antiviral. Similarly, antifungal, then anthelmintics. So antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, anthelmintics. So those are all comes under the chemotherapy, right? Then the clinical pharmacology. See, clinical pharmacology it is one of the disputed the term related to the pharmacology. There is always a juggle between the clinical pharmacology and a basic pharmacology. Always there is a tussle between the clinical pharmacology and basic pharmacology. See, basic pharmacologists, they will tell, see, pharmacology is what we are studying, that is basic pharmacology. But a clinical pharmacologist tells, see, it is just not a basic pharmacology. So we are studying the right component of the pharmacology. So always there is a tussle between clinical pharmacology and the basic pharmacology. So what exactly this basic clinical pharmacology means? See, basic pharmacology, you know, it is study about the ABCD about a drug, not other than that, right? That is for basic pharmacology. Whereas the clinical pharmacology, see, clinical pharmacology, in a very general term, it is a study of drug and biologics action in the human and the animal. So to be more precise, clinical pharmacology, it includes the aspects of drug discovery, drug development, drug utilization, and drug regulation. See, this drug regulation part is not included in the basic pharmacology. So it includes drug discovery. Suppose see, for a coronavirus, a new entity has to be discovered. See, no doubt they are using already existing drugs like hydroxychloroquine and remdesivir and other antiviral drug. But there is a more option to discover a new drug against the coronavirus. So likewise, the drug discovery, the initial phase of discovering a new drug, the drug discovery phase, then the drug development phase, drug discovery and development. So right from discovery of a new target, then preclinical studies, clinical studies, so it will go on year together. So that will be included in drug discovery and development phase. Then drug utilization. See, once the drug is ready, once it is marketed, then it will come into the drug utilization phase. So who is going to utilize it? The patient is going to utilize the drug prescribed by the physician. So it is a drug utilization phase. And drug regulation. See, drug regulation related to, so the regulatory rules pertaining to the sale of a drug. See, the physician, the pharmacist, he cannot give drug like that. So you cannot give all the drug over the counter. So according to prescription, he should give the drug. And the drug regulation, the sale of the drug is bounded by certain regulatory rules also. So that comes under drug regulation. So all the aspects of these phases comes under clinical pharmacology. And it also includes the study of pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. So what is pharmacodynamic, pharmacokinetics? That we'll see later in this video only. Then what is the scope of this clinical pharmacology? See, why we need this clinical pharmacology? When there is basic pharmacology already doing all these things, why we need this clinical pharmacology? See, clinical pharmacology, it reduces the chances of poisoning events. See, why it reduces the chances of poisoning event? Because drug regulation aspect also comes under clinical pharmacology. See, the best example for this is the usage of a drug called as thalidomide. See, thalidomide, it was very commonly used during 1960s to treat the morning sickness in pregnant women. So morning sickness is the vomiting syndrome in the pregnant woman. So during 1960s, thalidomide was used to treat the morning sickness in pregnant women. So it was a very good drug. So it used to decrease the vomiting syndrome in the woman. Later on, it was found out that thalidomide caused fetal defects. So it used to lead to the phocomelia. So limb defect will be produced by this thalidomide. So once that report came in about the thalidomide, so what the drug regulatory agency did, it banned the usage of the thalidomide and reduces the future poisoning events out of usage of this thalidomide. So the major scope of this clinical pharmacology, it reduces the poisoning event, then minimizing prescribing errors. So if physician, while prescribing, if he make any error, so that might lead to the severe adverse effect on a patient. So minimizing the prescribing errors. Then deprescribing ineffective medication. See, for example, some drug X. See, a physician is prescribing, or so many physicians prescribing this drug X, and it is found out that, see, a clinical pharmacologist, he found out that this X drug is not useful. See, if you are using some drug, see, for example, if you are using a ceftriaxone, against the coronavirus, rampantly you are using ceftriaxone against coronavirus infection, but it is found ineffective against the coronavirus infection. So what is the need of using this drug X? So then you should prescribe this ineffective medication. So cost effectiveness wise and effectiveness wise, you de-prescribe such ineffective medication. Then promoting adherence to the prescription. So related to a pharmacist, so you adhere to the prescription. See, if a physician prescribe Dolo 650, you give Dolo 650. Instead of Dolo 650, you don't give any other drug. So you promote adherence to the prescription. Then reducing the adverse drug effect. Reducing the adverse drug effect. See, in this adverse drug effect, so the adverse drug effect, as the name itself suggests, it is the adverse drug reactions that is produced by a drug. Sometimes this adverse drug effect will be acceptable and sometimes it will be unacceptable. See, for example, a drug called as minoxidil. See, minoxidil, originally it is used as an anti-hypertensive agent to decrease the blood pressure. But the major adverse effect of this minoxidil, so rather than you can call it a side effect, the minoxidil side effect is it used to increase the hair growth in men. So this hair growth, the side effect, it is an acceptable side effect, right? See, for example, the paracetamol, the rampant usage of paracetamol, it leads to liver damage. So that will become an unacceptable side effect. See, a clinical pharmacologist, what he will do, see, he know about this minoxidil, he know the side effect of the minoxidil. So he report minoxidil's major side effect is it increases the hair growth. So what he will do, the clinical pharmacologist passes on this data to the pharmaceutical company. So what this pharmaceutical company will do, see, minoxidil is having an acceptable side effect. Why we not use this side effect as a new treatment regimen? Then this minoxidil, instead of using as an antihypertensive agent, now it is used to promote the hair growth. So the minoxidil, more often it is used to promote the hair growth and not used as an antihypertensive agent. So it is the work of a clinical pharmacologist, right? So similarly, the pioglitazone, metformin, very commonly used anti-diabetic drug. See, pioglitazone, so preclinical studies, clinical studies during drug discovery and drug development stage, this pioglitazone and the metformin has given wonderful result against the diabetes. So once it is marketed, so after marketing, so they suppose they used some 25 mg of pioglitazone in male and female. So they found a different result. See, in male, the antibiotic effect is fast, whereas the same 25 mg is not producing the intended effect in case of female. The same thing is true with the metformin. So there is a relative change in the effect produced by the same dose of the pioglitazone and the metformin on the male and female. So it has been reported by the clinical pharmacologist to the pharmaceutical companies. So these things, this drug discovery and drug development stage, then drug utilization, then drug regulation phase, all will be included under the clinical pharmacology. And to be more broader, in a broader sense, this clinical pharmacology, it is a translational discipline. See, what do you mean by translational discipline? Translation is anything that you decipher. See, translation discipline, it is nothing but the knowledge that is acquired from the previous studies that is translated into the effective treatment. So what do you mean by previous studies? See, before a drug is marketed, so it will undergo preclinical and clinical study. See, for example, paracetamol. See, paracetamol, before getting marketed, so it will undergo the preclinical study. See, for example, a fever is induced into a rat, and to that rat you give a paracetamol. See, if that paracetamol reduces the fever in case of rat, so that is a proven thing. So that proven thing, it will be translated in the effective treatment. If the preclinical study proves the efficacy of a drug, then it will be translated into the true picture. So the same paracetamol is used in the true patient who is having fever, then it will reduce the fever. So it is the meaning of translation discipline. So the knowledge that is acquired from the previous studies, it is translated into the effective treatment. So clinical pharmacology is a translational discipline essential for rational drug development and therapeutics in case of humans and the animals, right? So these are the examples that are related to the clinical pharmacology. So I already quoted the example of thalidomide during 1960s, morning sickness. It used to cause phocomelia, then the drug was banned. Then the amphetamine, it is used as a CNS stimulant drug. So when it is taken by the feeding mothers, say breastfeeding mothers, so when they took this amphetamine, so it used to excrete through the milk and it used to enter the infants also. So once this report was done by the clinical pharmacologist. They stopped using amphetamine. So they given an regulatory ban about the usage of amphetamine in the lactating mothers. Then the terfenadine. See, terfenadine, very commonly used antihistaminic drug. So in case of allergy, we used to, earlier the terfenadine was very commonly used. But the usage of terfenadine, once it was marketed, so during drug discovery and drug development stage, so nobody found out the important adverse effect of terfenadine. Only once it is marketed, once the patient started using terfenadine, he started producing the heart disorders. So it used to start affecting the heart. So then the terfenadine usage was banned. So later on, the metabolite of terfenadine inside the body, terfenadine gets metabolized into fexofenadine. And this fexofenadine, it does not produce any effect related to the heart. It does not produce heart related disorders. So now the fexofenadine is used rather than the terfenadine. Even though the fexofenadine is a metabolite of terfenadine, it does not produce any adverse effect. It is presently used, but terfenadine is not used. So it is also a work of the clinical pharmacologist. Then the nortriptyline. See, nortriptyline, it is a tricyclic antidepressant. It is a very commonly used antidepressant. So during drug discovery and development phase, so its action was very normal. See, once it is marketed, once it started using on the patient, see, some patient, they saw exaggerated response of nortriptyline. See, for example, nortriptyline is used in 20 mg. See, this 20 mg is producing exaggerated effect in some individuals. But the same 20 mg, it failed to produce any response in some individuals. So this variety in the response on a patient, it was related to this enzyme, CYP2D6. So what is this enzyme? So in subsequent classes, you will be knowing this cytochrome enzyme. See, that for time being, the cytochrome enzyme, it is an enzyme needed for the metabolism of the drug. So such is the CYP2D6. It is one of the enzyme involved in the metabolism of nortriptyline, right? So in some patient, it will be produced in excess. See, once it is produced in excess in some patients, what will happen? The metabolism of nortriptyline will be more. In such patient, the effect will be less. See, more enzyme, more metabolism of nortriptyline, the level of nortriptyline in the body will be less. So the effect seen will be less. Whereas in some individual, the expression of this enzyme or the genes related to the CYP2D6 will be less. So in those individual, the metabolism of nortriptyline will be delayed. That means the concentration of nortriptyline in those body will be increased. So obviously there will be over exaggeration of the nortriptyline effect. So it is also reported by a clinical pharmacologist. Then another example, herbal agent rapidity. See, some quacks, so they used an herbal agent, and whenever they use this herbal agent, it used to rapidly decrease the pain in the patients. So it was a miracle drug. So he sold it as a miracle drug, and it is having an herbal agent rapidity, so it will rapidly decrease the fever or rapidly decrease the pain. So once the clinical pharmacologist came to know about this thing, and when he checked this herbal agent in the laboratory, he found out that so there is a chemical that is mixed in this herbal agent that is actually decreasing the pain in such a miraculous form. So it is also action of the clinical pharmacologist. Now the question is whether a medical doctor or a veterinary doctor can only become a clinical pharmacologist. So it will be assignment question. So is medico and vetico only can become the clinical pharmacologist? The next term, experimental pharmacology. See, experimental pharmacology, it is a study of the action of the drug in the animal or animal tissues under laboratory conditions. See, under laboratory condition, what will be the action of the drug on the animal? We call it as experimental pharmacology. See, now my question is, suppose you are experimenting a drug, a fresh drug is marketed and you are bound to experiment that drug. So if you are experimenting a drug in a clinical setup, can you tell it as an experimental pharmacologist? So see, for example, patient A and B, they are suffering from diarrhea, and there is a fresh drug given by a pharmaceutical company Sir, it has been approved in the drug discovery and development phase. Now it is been on the stage of marketing. So can you please check the efficacy of a drug X? So that drug X is given to the individuals A and B with the diarrhea. Can this setup be called as experimental pharmacology? No, you cannot call this setup as experimental pharmacology. See, it is under laboratory condition. See, under laboratory condition, similar species will be taken, similar age will be taken. So many parameters will be there when you are performing an experiment under laboratory condition. Whereas in a true condition, so you cannot maintain such laboratory conditions. See, suppose patient A, he might be a male. Patient B might be a female. He is an old age man. So she is a young woman. So many parameters are different. So you cannot call it as an experimental pharmacology. Then pharmacoeconomics. So the study of the cost effectiveness of the drug treatment. So what do you mean by cost effectiveness of a drug treatment? See, for example, mastitis. If a cattle is suffering from mastitis, you are giving drug A and drug B. See, drug A, the cost of a drug A is 100 rupees. The cost of drug B is 200 rupees, but both are effective in treating the mastitis. So which drug you will prefer? So obviously we have to prefer the drug A, which is treating the mastitis in a better way, because we are dealing with the farmers who are economically backward. So the pharmacoeconomics thing comes into picture. So under this pharmacoeconomics, there is another term that we call it as drug repurposing. See, what do you mean by the drug repurposing? See, drug repurposing, it is finding new biological target or new treatment indications for a old drug. See, what is the basic principle of drug repurposing? See, for example, coronavirus. So instead of going for a new drug discovery, so if you are going for new drug discovery, so related to the cost effectiveness of a new drug discovery, so it will take more years and it will also cost you more. So it will take more amount for drug discovery and drug development of a new drug. See, for example, an old drug. See, hydroxychloroquine. Why they are using hydroxychloroquine? It is already having known pharmacokinetic parameters. We know what are the side effects of hydroxychloroquine, what are the therapeutic uses of hydroxychloroquine, and more drug discovery development stages are passed by the hydroxychloroquine. So the hydroxychloroquine, if it is treating coronavirus in a safe manner, so why not we use hydroxychloroquine? So that is a drug repurposing. See, finding new biological target, new treatment indications for an old drug. See, for example, minoxidil, I told you. Originally it was used as an antihypertensive agent. So once you know the side effect of minoxidil is it increases the hair growth. Now they started using minoxidil to increase the hair growth. So instead of discovering a new drug to promote the hair growth, they are using minoxidil cost-wise. So it is a cost-effective measure. So that is the term related to drug repurposing. Another example is sildenafil, marketed as Viagra. So you know why sildenafil is used, to increase the potency. See, apart from the original use of the sildenafil, it is also an antihypertensive agent. So now very commonly sildenafil is used to treat pulmonary hypertension. So those are all certain examples of drug repurposing, right? Then pharmacogenomics. See, pharmacogenomics, it is a study of genetically determined variation in the response to the drug. So genetically determined variation in the response to drug, we call it as pharmacogenomics. And the best example this pharmacogenomics is nortriptyline. See, I already quoted this example under the clinical pharmacology. Nortriptyline and the genes which code for the enzyme CYP2D6. I told you, right? Some individual there will be exaggerated response for nortriptyline. For some individual there will be under response for the nortriptyline. It is due to the variation in the gene that codes for the enzyme CYP2D6. That is the meaning of genetically determined variation in the response to a drug. Then there is another term called as idiosyncrasy. So in subsequent classes you will come across this term idiosyncrasy. For time being, see, idiosyncrasy, it is an abnormal variation in the response to a drug. So need not be genetically determined. See, there are certain other causes that will lead to the abnormal variation in the response to a drug. So in broader way we call it as idiosyncrasy. So idiosyncrasy, the abnormal variation for a response of a drug, need not be genetically linked. See, in certain exam paper, so dash is a genetically determined variation in response to a drug. So more often we used to write idiosyncrasy, but if it is genetically determined variation in the response, then we should go for pharmacogenomics only. If there is an abnormal change in the abnormal variation response of a drug, it's a general term, then you can go for idiosyncrasy. There are more causes that are related to the abnormal variations, so those will be covered under idiosyncrasy in subsequent classes. So it is a thing about pharmacogenomics. And the next term is the very important term, so where the entire dental pharmacology revolves around the two terms pharmacodynamics and the pharmacokinetics. See, what do you mean by pharmacodynamics? See, in the layman language or in the common man language, pharmacodynamics is what drug does to the body. See, D for D, what drug does to the body. Don't confuse. So pharmacodynamics is what a drug does to the body. So in a broader sense, pharmacodynamics is study of the biochemical and the physiological effect of drug and their mechanism of action. Then what do you mean by pharmacokinetics? See, pharmacokinetics, it is a study of LADME about a drug. LADME about a drug. L stands for the liberation, A stands for absorption, D stands for distribution, M stands for metabolism, and E stands for the excretion. So the study about the liberation, absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of a drug, we call it as pharmacokinetics. So in layman language, what the body does to the drug, we call it as pharmacokinetics. Or in other way, the quantitative analysis of the time course of the drug related to the absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of a drug, we call it as pharmacokinetics. So to understand pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, so we shall take an example of the paracetamol. So why I often take paracetamol as an example is, so we are not through into the specific pharmacology, right? So we are just hopping on the general aspects of the pharmacology. So I am taking the basic drug, the paracetamol. See, paracetamol very commonly marketed as Dolo 650, available as a tablet form, right? We are taking it through the oral route. So you're taking it through the oral route. So through the oral route, it will enter the stomach and also into the intestine. See, from the stomach or from the intestine, it will get absorbed into the body, right? See, more often it will get absorbed from the intestine. So from the intestine, from the portal circulation, it will enter into the liver. So first time, if it is absorbed from the intestine, it will go into the liver, and this phenomenon we call it as first pass effect. See, the drug, so where it is passing for the first time, it is passing through the liver. So that effect we call it as first pass effect. So a drug absorbed from the small intestine going into the liver, the phenomenon we call it as first pass effect. So here in the liver, there might be certain metabolism of this drug or might not be. So a drug might be metabolized. See, there are some drugs which need activation. So that activation happens in the liver. Or there are some drugs which will get metabolized in the liver. Or there are some drugs which don't get metabolized in the liver. So it will pass on from the liver, and from the liver it will enter the heart. So from the heart it will be pumped into the various tissues, right? So our paracetamol will go into the heart. So from the heart it will be pumped into the target organ. So which is the target organ for the paracetamol? See, obviously it will be brain. So in the hypothalamus there will be temperature set point will be increased at the brain. So it will go to the brain. So it will decrease the set point. The temperature set point, it will decrease there. And apart from target organ, see, the paracetamol, it not only go to the brain, it will also, see, since the blood is pumped into other tissues also, it will go into other non-target tissues also. Whereas in target tissues, it will do its duty. And other non-target organ, if there is any pain in the non-target organ, see, for example, skeletal muscle, if there is pain in the skeletal muscle, it will alleviate the pain in the skeletal muscle. So from the brain and from the non-target organ, so it will do its duty, or it won't do duty, just it will visit the non-target organ. So from there, again it will back into the liver. So here, after doing its duty, when it's back to the liver, so there the paracetamol will get metabolized. So once it gets metabolized, the metabolite, it will go into the kidney and will be excreted out. Or there are some drugs from the liver, the biliary excretion, it will go into the GIT and it will be excreted through the rectal route. So this is the movement, this is the transport of any drug taken through the oral route. So what are the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic features that comes here? So the pharmacokinetic features, I told you, the study of liberation, absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of a drug. So the liberation part comes here in the stomach. So when you give Dolo 650, in a tablet form, so that has to be disintegrated in the stomach, and the disintegration of the oral dosage form we call it as liberation. That liberation is not true with the syrup. In the syrup there is no question of disintegration. So for a tablet dosage form, for a solid dosage form, the liberation aspect comes into picture, right? So for a Dolo 650, it will get disintegrated in the stomach, so we call it as liberation. So from liberation, the next aspect of pharmacokinetics is absorption. See, from small intestine it will get absorbed, so that is the process, the absorption process occurs here. So from absorption it will go into the liver, so where there will be first pass effect. From liver it will be distributed to the various tissues. So liver, it will go into the heart, so from heart it will pump into different tissues, so that phase we call it as distribution. So the drug will be distributed to the various tissues. Then it will act on the brain and the non-target organ. So in the brain, what is its mechanism of action? What this paracetamol will do? It will inhibit the cyclooxygenase enzyme present in the brain tissue. So that is how it decreases the level of prostaglandin, and this prostaglandin decreases the temperature set point. So that is the mechanism of action of the drug. So what do you mean by pharmacodynamics? Pharmacodynamics is the study of biochemical and physiological effect and the mechanism of action of a drug. So what is the mechanism of action of paracetamol? It is inhibiting the COX enzyme, decreasing the prostaglandin level, decreasing the fever. So this is the pharmacodynamic phase. Then what is the biochemical and physiological effect? It is decreasing the temperature in the body. That is the physiological effect of the drug. So this phase is the pharmacodynamic phase. So coming to the pharmacokinetic, distribution is over. Then after doing its duty or visiting the non-target organ, it will enter the metabolizing organ, the liver. So there it undergoes the metabolism. The third thing about the pharmacokinetic, the metabolism. So after metabolites are formed, it will be excreted either to kidney or through the rectal route. So the last phase of pharmacokinetic, excretion. So the study of liberation, absorption, distribution, metabolism, and the excretion of the drug, we call it as pharmacokinetic. The study of the biochemical and physiological effect coupled with the mechanism of action of a drug, we call it as pharmacodynamics. Did you understand the pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics in a nutshell? Easy to understand. So if you don't understand, we will go in deep depth about the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetics. There slowly you will understand what do you mean by pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. Then the next term is pharmacognosy. So pharmacognosy, it is the study of drugs derived from the plant and animal sources, and also about their sources, identification, constituents, detection of substituents or the adulterants. So pharmacognosy is anything related to a drug that is derived exclusively from the natural sources, right? So in depth, it is also the study about its sources, identification and other things. See, for example, the digitalis. See, digitalis is a drug very commonly used as, it is used to increase the strength of the myocardium. So it is used to increase the strength of the myocardium. So in a failing heart, we use this digitalis. What is the source of digitalis? It is derived from the leaf and seeds of the purple foxglove plant. So that is its source. So once you extract this digitalis compound, so you have to identify. So there are several compounds you extract from the purple foxglove plant. So apart from digitalis, you get there are so many digitalis compounds: digitoxin, gitoxin, digoxin, so many compounds. So you have to identify what it is. Then the other constituents, then detection of the substituents or adulterants. So all these things comes under the pharmacognosy. So there is another term, ethnopharmacology, that is your assignment question. What is the difference between a pharmacognosy and the ethnopharmacology? Ethnopharmacology is related also to the herbal drugs. So what is the difference between a pharmacognosy and an ethnopharmacology? So the next term is pharmacotherapeutics. See, pharmacotherapeutics, it is a usage of drugs in the prevention and treatment of the diseases. Or in other sense, it is a clinical application of the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic knowledge of the drug. So what is this application of pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic knowledge? See, now we can ask question, see, why we have to use Dolo 650 only in alleviating the fever, and that too through oral route. So who told you? So why not we use Dolo 650 as an injection? Why not we can use Dolo 650 as in another dosage form? Why we are using through oral route and why we are using to alleviate the fever? See, we got this knowledge through the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic parameters, right? So from this knowledge only, we are using this Dolo 650 to reduce the fever and through the oral route. And this clinical application of this knowledge to use a drug for prevention and treatment of a disease, that we call it as pharmacotherapeutics. So in general thing, usage of any drug for prevention and treatment of disease, we call it as pharmacotherapeutics. Then what do you mean by therapeutics? See, therapeutics, it is any branch of medicine which deals with the application of all the sciences in the treatment of diseases. See, whatever you use for the treatment of disease, that comes under therapeutics. So if you use drug, it will become pharmacotherapeutics, right? So you can use surgery method. See, for any other thing, so you need surgery. See, for a fracture, you need surgery. You cannot rely only on drug. Drug will decrease the pain that is inflicted due to the fracture, but the surgery is the thing that will do its duty. Then radiation, certain times radiation will cure the disease. The dietary variations, then exercise will do the thing. Then the managemental aspect sometimes will do the trick. So there are so many things that are involved in the treatment of a disease that comes under therapeutics. So likewise, there are different therapy we can use. Empirical therapy. So there are two important therapies. One is empirical therapy or rational therapy. See, empirical therapy, so it is purely based on the experience that is gained by the clinician. See, he is having very less knowledge about the mode of pathogenesis of a disease, or he might have very less information of what drug he is using. So during that time, so he will rely on the empirical therapy. See, more often I use ceftriaxone for a urinary tract infection in a dog. If a dog is suffering from a urinary tract infection, so earlier I have given him ceftriaxone, so he was okay. So now again I am giving ceftriaxone to treat urinary tract infection. See, there is no logic behind that, or there is no a clear knowledge about the usage of ceftriaxone. Why he is using ceftriaxone? It is merely based on its previous experience. See, he has used ceftriaxone, so the dog got cured. So that's why he is using ceftriaxone. Or for any mastitis. See, in mastitis, for this village, I used this antibiotic last time, so it has given wonderful result. So again I am using. See, I am not bothering about what kind of mastitis it is. It has given a wonderful result. I am using that medicine. So that comes under empirical therapy. See, sometimes the empirical therapy might be legitimate. See, for example, the broad spectrum antibiotic therapy. See, for mastitis only. See, for mastitis, so if you want to perform ABST, antibiotic sensitivity test, you collect the milk and go to the lab. They will take 2 days to tell you which antibiotic is effective against that mastitis. So by that 2 days, so the mastitis will become the grave, or it will become more severe. So during that time, so what is the first thing we have to use? You use some broad spectrum antibiotic to treat the mastitis. So that is a legitimate thing to do. So what is the illegitimate thing? See, if you know the thing, but if you are using some other drug without the knowledge, so that will become illegitimate. The quacks what they are using, that is an illegitimate thing. Right? That is about the empirical therapy. So what is rational therapy? Rational therapy, after knowing the scientific knowledge about the drug, after knowing the scientific knowledge about the pathogenesis of the disease, if you are giving the drug, then it will become rational therapy. For example, after ABST, so after ABST, regarding the mastitis, if you are using an antibiotic, the perfect antibiotic for that mastitis, that therapy will become the rational therapy. Then symptomatic therapy. Symptomatic therapy, it is therapy aimed to decrease the symptom of a disease. See, for example, a person is suffering from diarrhea. So what is the symptom here? Diarrhea. There is an increased flow of stools. So that you have to decrease. That symptom, it has to be decreased. You have given anti-diarrheal drug, but you are not aiming at the source of the disease. So you are not giving any treatment for the source of a disease. What is the source of diarrhea? It might be a protozoa. Protozoa is producing the diarrhea, but you are not giving any anti-protozoal drug. You are giving only an anti-motility drug to decrease the diarrhea. So that will become symptomatic therapy. Symptomatic therapy, sometimes it will be helpful, sometimes it will become harmful. So helpful, you are decreasing the severity of the symptoms, but harmful, see, in diarrhea only, if you decrease the motility of the intestine, the source, the protozoa, it will stay there only in the GIT and it will aggravate the condition. So certain times symptomatic therapy might become harmful. Then there is a palliative therapy. See, palliative therapy, it is to relieve the suffering of the patient. So more oftenly, interchangeably it is used, symptomatic therapy and palliative therapy. Palliative therapy, more often it is used to relieve the suffering of the patient. See, for example, a patient is suffering from severe pain. So due to fracture, an accident has happened. Due to fracture, is suffering more pain. See, the right thing to do that time is you have to go for surgery. So before going to surgery, you have to relieve the suffering of that patient. You have to relieve the pain of that patient. So that time you give the painkiller. So likewise, kidney stone, acute pain will be there. So that time, no doubt you have to remove the stone, or the treatment should be aimed at the relieving the stone. But meantime, there is a suffering. The suffering has to be also be relieved. So painkiller is the best thing that will come under palliative therapy. Then there are certain accessory therapy. Physiotherapy, you know, the massaging things will also go in the physiotherapy. Then heliotherapy, the cure through usage of the light. Hydrotherapy, usage of water. Then placebo therapy. See, what do you mean by this placebo therapy? What do you mean by placebo? See, placebo, in other way, it is called as to please the patient. To please the patient. See, placebo, it is any substance or treatment, it does not have any therapeutic value as such. So placebo, see, for example, very commonly placebo is used in during mental disorders, during depression. See, what will happen, a patient suffering from mental disorder, what he will think often, see, I am taking some dosage, I am taking some tablet, so because of this tablet I am feeling comfortable. So that is the mental status of that patient. So during that time, so how long a tablet can be given, how long a diazepam can be given? So diazepam, it is associated with serious side effects. So if you give it for a very long time, so during that time, so what the physician will do, he'll prescribe a placebo. So placebo, as such, it doesn't have a therapeutic value, but meantime it is pleasing the patient. It is giving a comfortable scene to the patient wherein he will think, so I am taking something, so I am feeling comfortable. So that is placebo. So in our veterinary practice also, so placebo therapy is not related to the patient rather than the patient owner. See, we'll come across so many situations. See, farmer, what he will always think, see, I have taken my cattle to the hospital, so doctor has not given any injection. So he just prescribed one tablet and he just gone. So during that time, what the farmer thinks, so the physician, he should have given injection. If you have given injection, the disease would have warded off. So that time, so what we as a veterinarian we should do, so we will give some saline solution as an injection. So that will become placebo therapy. See, the cattle might not be suffering from any disease. So it is a situation associated with that farmer. So during that time, we will inject a saline solution. So that type of therapy, that is also one type of therapy. See, if you are injecting saline solution intentionally for a serious condition, that will become an empirical therapy. So if you are giving a quackery practice, so placebo therapy to please the patient owner, so if there is no any serious situation, that will become placebo therapy. So did you understand what do you mean by placebo? Then pharmacy. See, pharmacy, it is a study of the collection, compounding and dispensing of drug so as to make them fit for administration to the patient. See, earlier time pharmacy, so now the pharmacy store, so any medical store, they don't do anything. They'll pick the tablet, they'll pick the syrup, they will right away give the ready-made thing to you. But earlier time, the pharmacy was not like that. So there is a collection thing, compounding, dispensing of the drugs so as to make them fit for administration to the patient. See, for example, Alba mixture. So it is very commonly used as a treatment for digestive disorder. So how to prepare a Alba mixture? So you have to mix some magnesium sulfate, some sodium bicarbonate, then bismuth carbonate you have to mix, then you have to make some powder, then you have to make it in the particular dosage form, then you will give it to the patient. So many things will be there before giving it to the patient. So those study will comes under pharmacy. So now this definition will become obsolete. So now the ready-made product this pharmacy will be giving. So terms related to the pharmacy, official pharmacy. What do you mean by official pharmacy? So all these things, the collection, compounding, dispensing of the drug, if it is done according to the official pharmacopoeia. I told you pharmacopoeia is a text that comprises ABCD about a drug. So right from the source to the dosage of the drug, so everything will be there in the pharmacopoeia, and how to prepare the drug also will be there in that pharmacopoeia. So if according to that procedure, if according to that official pharmacopoeia, see in India we are having Indian pharmacopoeia, IP. So you might have seen in any drug literature, you see the Dolo 650 only, you take Dolo 650, you see paracetamol, active ingredient. After paracetamol there is a term IP. So what do you mean by this IP? IP is Indian pharmacopoeia. So according to the official pharmacopoeia, if a pharmacist is doing collection, compounding and dispensing of a drug, then that type of pharmacy we call it as official pharmacy. See, what do you mean by extemporaneous pharmacy? See, extemporaneous pharmacy, suppose a physician, he has prescribed something. So what he has prescribed, see, you mix this much of sodium bicarbonate, you mix this much of magnesium sulfate, and you prepare some amount of a drug. But this is not in accordance with the official pharmacopoeia. So Indian pharmacopoeia tells something about this X drug, but a physician is telling something about this X drug. So if the pharmacy, if he follow this prescription and does the thing, then that pharmacy will become extemporaneous pharmacy. So many students are well versed with the youth festival also. What do you mean by extemper? Extemper speech is on the spot speech. So on the spot is preparing something not based on the official pharmacopoeia, then that type of practice will become extemporaneous pharmacy. Then what do you mean by compounding? It's the way in which you prepare the drug. That is the compounding. Dispensing, it is the art of labeling and dispensing of a drug. So that is dispensing. Then pharmaceutics, it's a large scale preparation of a drug. So likewise the term pharmaceuticals. See, pharmaceuticals is a firm involved in the large scale preparation of the drug. So likewise there is another term called as posology. Posology is the study about the drug dosages. So the study about the drug dosages, that comes under the posology. And the next term is the pharmacovigilance. See, pharmacovigilance, it came into picture during 2002. So where the World Health Organization, they inserted this pharmacovigilance word. See, what do you mean by pharmacovigilance? Pharmacovigilance, it is a science and activity that is related to the detection, assessment, understanding and the prevention of adverse effects of a drug. So not only it is a theoretical science, it is also an activity. So it is also an activity because there are certain activities that comes under the pharmacovigilance. That's why it is a science and activity related to the detection, assessment, understanding and prevention of adverse effect of a drug. See, for example, see some physician, see the main three components that are involved in the usage of a drug. So physician prescribe the drug, pharmacist will give the drug, the patient will use the drug. If any adverse effect produced by the drug, these three people will be responsible, or these three people will know about the adverse effect of a drug. So pharmacovigilant, so what he will do, he will collect the data from these three persons. See, for example, physician has prescribed a X drug, right? Then pharmacist also given X drug, the patient has taken X drug and he has suffered from some Y adverse effect which was not mentioned earlier. So during drug discovery and development phase, during the clinical pharmacologist study also, they don't find any this Y adverse effect, but patient suddenly has got this Y adverse effect and the pharmacovigilant, so what they have done, they have reported this Y adverse effect to the pharmaceutical company. That is a major activity of the pharmacovigilance, the detection of this Y adverse effect. The assessment and understanding. So what do you mean by assessment and understanding? So related to the adverse drug effect, when we go in depth about the adverse drug effect, that is the last topic in the general pharmacology. So during that class, we will study about the various types of adverse drug effect. So the adverse drug effect, it will vary from type 1 adverse effect to type 4 adverse effect. So there are different types of drug adverse effect. So that is the meaning of assessment and understanding. You have to assess and understand what type of adverse drug effect is. Then the prevention of adverse effect of a drug. Once you know what kind of adverse drug effect is this Y adverse effect is, then you will pass on the data to the pharmaceutical company. That pharmaceutical company either will stop using that drug, or you will tune the structure of the drug in such a way that the adverse effect will be decreased, so that you can prevent the future adverse effect of a drug. That is the science, the pharmacovigilance. So what is the scope? What is scope of pharmacovigilance? You know the scope of pharmacovigilance is reduce the probability of harmful effect out of a drug usage, right? So what it involves, the pharmacovigilance, it involves the post-marketing surveillance. So what do you mean by post-marketing surveillance? I told you the X drug. So X drug has been marketed already. The physician has also prescribed, pharmacist has given it, patients has used it. So that has become post-marketing surveillance. So after marketing of a drug, so if you see any adverse effect, so that will become the post-marketing surveillance. See, for that post-marketing surveillance, the pharmacovigilance will be having separate yellow format or drug format, and in the drug format, you will enter all these things. So the name of the drug. See, for example, some X brand of drug has been prescribed. So who is the manufacturer? What is the batch number of the drug? The expiry date of the drug? Anything related to the expiry date, that's why it's causing adverse effect. Then what is the dosage that has been used? Any wrong dosage by the physician? At the route, see what happens in the route. See, suppose the physician, see, there are certain drugs which has to be taken through vaginal route or through rectal route, but the dosage form, it will also come in the capsule form. See, what the patient will do once he receives that thing in the capsule form, what he will think, see, capsule, I have to take it through oral route. Why we have to take it through rectal route? So if we take it through oral route, so it might not work. So that is the thing. So he will enter the route of administration. Then what is the frequency? Then what is the cause for which the X drug has been prescribed? And what is the date on which it is prescribed? Then the patient details. So all these things you will take into the yellow format or in the drug format. Then you will see what went wrong. That will become the post-marketing surveillance. Then prescription event monitoring. So the same thing, whether the dosage, whether the name, the manufacturer, any change in that. See, for example, physician has prescribed X drug, but pharmacist, he will tell, see, I don't have this brand X drug, I have a different brand name, but the same component you will give, but this has produced adverse effects. So that is prescription event monitoring. Then computerized medical record linkage. See, in a chain of hospitals, so what they will do, they will be having the medical record about a patient. So it will give you some picture about the patient. See, earlier I used some extract, it has caused the adverse effect on that patient. So now we shall not use this extract. So we should be careful while using extract on this patient. So we will use some other drug. So that thing will be given by this medical record. But as in our veterinary practice, this is severely lacking. We don't collect the medical record, we don't keep the medical record about a patient. Then dissemination of the adverse drug effect data. See, once the pharmacovigilance knows about the Y adverse effect, so will disseminate this adverse effect into the pharmaceutical agencies, into regulatory bodies. So what they will do, see, similarly the same thing happened with thalidomide. So during 1960, thalidomide caused phocomelia. Then they disseminated this adverse drug effect to the therapy, then to the pharmaceutical company, to the regulatory agency. Regulatory agency banned it. Pharmaceutical company, they stopped the manufacture of that thalidomide. So likewise. Then the change in the labeling of the medicine. So the pharmacovigilance activity, it might lead to change in the labeling of the medicine. See, paracetamol. So when they started finding paracetamol will cause liver damage, so afterwards, so if you see any Dolo 650 tablet, there is an indication. So overdosage of paracetamol or regular usage of paracetamol will lead to liver damage. So if it is not serious thing, so overdosage or long exposure of paracetamol lead to liver damage. So they'll change the labeling of the medicine. So those things will come under pharmacovigilance. Then the drug. So what do you mean by the drug? See, drug came from the word drog, that means dry herb. Drug is any chemical agent used for the diagnosis, prevention, mitigation and treatment of a disease. See, according to World Health Organization, drug is any substance intended to be used to modify or to explore physiological system or the pathological state for the benefit of the recipient. And a drug is any chemical substance which is without a side effect. There is no drug without a side effect. So that we should take into account. So if some pharmaceutical company or someone is boasting, see, my drug is not producing any side effect, so you cannot consider that substance as a drug itself, because all the drug will produce are bound to produce side effect. So drug include therapeutic agents, poisons, addictive agents also. Then there is a medicine. So trivial term, less used term. So what is the difference between a drug and a medicine? See, drug might be a single entity. See, for example, aspirin. So aspirin, basically it is acetyl salicylic acid. It contains only one chemical compound, acetyl salicylic acid. So as such, if you give it to a patient, it might not work, or there will be pharmacokinetic things. It might not get absorbed well, it might not get distributed well. See, for that, some other compound, so for example, monohydrate, aspirin monohydrate form or trihydrate form will be added to it. And along with that, some other excipients, some vehicles will also be added to this aspirin. Then it will be prepared as a dosage form, then given to the patient. So when you add excipients, the other things are constituents to the aspirin, then it will become medicine. Okay, that is the basic difference between a drug and a medicine. More oftenly, interchangeably we use drug or medicine. So medicine is a chemical agent or a mixture of chemical agent often combined with pharmacologically inactive substance used for the prevention, mitigation and treatment of a disease. And another thing, medicine does not include these poisons or addictive substances. Only the drugs which are beneficial considered as medicine. So that's why all drugs are not medicines, but all medicines are drugs. Is it true? So assignment questions for you. Then xenobiotic. What do you mean by xenobiotic? See, xenobiotic is anything that is foreign to the body. See, any chemical agent which is considered foreign to the body, we call it as xenobiotic. It is drugs, pesticide, pollutants, anything that is foreign to the body, we consider it as xenobiotic. Then prodrug. So prodrug, it is an inert drug precursor which upon biotransformation liberates pharmacologically active parent compound. See, prodrug, it is an inert drug precursor. See, for example, prodrug, examples of prodrug, the codeine. See, codeine, it is used in various syrup to decrease the cough. See, when you use this codeine as such, it won't produce any pharmacological effect. So codeine, so in the syrup form, it will go into the small intestine. From the small intestine, it will go into the liver. I told you the first pass effect. In the liver, I told you there are certain drugs which need pharmacological activation, and codeine is one such drug which needs pharmacological activation. Once it enters the liver, once it gets metabolized into the morphine, then morphine will produce the effect. So then what do you call this codeine as? Codeine will be called as a prodrug. So prodrug is an inert drug precursor which upon biotransformation liberate the pharmacologically active parent compound that will produce the intended effect. That is the meaning of prodrug. As such, it does not have any effect. So similarly, prontosil, it is the first antibiotic that is used. Prontosil as such, it doesn't have any activity. Once it is administered into the body, it has to get converted into sulfanilamide. Sulfanilamide is the active component which produces the effect. Similarly, terfenadine as such, it produces adverse effect. So, but once it gets converted into fexofenadine will produce the effect with less severe side effect. So, that is the meaning of a prodrug. So, what do you mean by over-the-counter drug, or abbreviated as OTC? Don't confuse OTC with oxytetracycline. See, oxytetracycline is a commonly used antibiotic in veterinary field, and in field also. So, we call in layman general terms we call it as OTC, whether OTC has been given like that, but standard abbreviation for OTC is over-the-counter drug. So what do you mean by over-the-counter drug? What is rampant in nowadays? Drug or medicine sold directly to a consumer without a prescription from registered health practitioner. See, pharmacist, a medical store person, what you will do, so if you go to a medical store, ask Dolo 650, right away you will give Dolo 650 without any prescription. So there are so many regulations involved in this. See, Dolo 650, it is a Schedule H drug. So what do you mean by Schedule H drug? I told you so many regulatory agencies will be there. They will be making laws. So one such law is Schedule H. Schedule H drug is one drug which has to be prescribed. So only when the prescription is presented, only when a proper prescription made by a registered health practitioner is presented to you, then only you have to give that drug. But what is happening in India or in other countries is this rampant over-the-counter drug. So the drug or medicines, it is sold directly to the consumer. They don't need any prescription. Right away they will give this drug, over-the-counter drug. The thing has happened in Assam also. There was a rampant usage of the Corex syrup. See, Corex syrup contains this codeine. So codeine is a narcotic thing. So it is a regulated thing. So codeine, they started using this Corex syrup. Addiction has happened with Corex syrup. So rampant over-the-counter sale of this Corex syrup was there. So later on, when they found out there is an addiction thing is related to the Corex syrup, then they stopped selling this Corex syrup, and they also withdraw the license of so many medical stores who were selling the Corex syrup over the counter. That is the meaning of over-the-counter drug. Then dosage form. See, dosage form is a drug preparation that provides convenient mode of administration of a drug to the patient. See, if any drug is in tablet form, so it is a tablet dosage form. So it is in a syrup, so that is one dosage form. In an injection, that is one dosage form, which is convenient for the administration of drug to the patient. We call it as dosage form. Then the next term is the dose. What do you mean by the dose? See, dose, It is the total amount of a drug that is administered all at one time to a patient to get the desired pharmacological response. That is the meaning of the dose. So for example, phenylbutazone. See, phenylbutazone, it is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. It is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So what is the dose of this phenylbutazone? So in the literature, it tells you 10 milligram per kg body weight. We have to use it through intramuscular or intravenous route. That is the indicated dosage. So if you want to give it in the cattle suffering from the arthritis, so it is suffering from the pain and inflammation, we want to give phenylbutazone, and the cattle is weighing around 200 kg. So what is your literature tells you? For per kg you have to use 10 mg. So for 200 kg it will come around 2000 mg. So this 2000 mg is the dose. It is the total amount of a drug administered all at one time to a patient to get the desired pharmacological response. But how to administer this 2000 mg doesn't make any sense. How to give this 2000 mg? So for that, this phenylbutazone injection bottle, it will be having a presentation. The presentation tells you, so phenylbutazone injection, it will be having 200 milligram per ml. In the bottle itself, it will be mentioned. So what do you mean by this? 200 milligram of phenylbutazone will be there per ml of this phenylbutazone injection. So per ml, there will be 200 milligram. So what is the dose? 2000 mg. So per ml contain 200 mg. So for 2000 mg, we need 10 ml. So you take 10 ml of phenylbutazone, you give it through intramuscular or intravenous route, and this 10 ml will become the total amount of a drug you are administering all at one time to a patient to get the desired pharmacological response. It is the meaning of dose. So what is the dosage? Dosage is different from dose. Dose, it only tells you about the amount of a drug. It is not bothered whether you are giving it through IM, IV, or how long you are giving, frequency. It doesn't tell you. It will tell you only the amount of a drug that has to be administered. Dosage, it is all the aspect that is involved in the administration of a drug in prescribed amount to a patient to get desired pharmacological response. It includes name, dose, frequency, route of administration, duration of therapy. Suppose Dolo 650. See, Dolo 650 is a brand name, so it contains paracetamol. So you are prescribing a Dolo 650. So how to give it? You give it a tablet in the morning, not in the afternoon. Give it in the evening. BID 2 times a day through oral route. For how long? You have to give it for 5 days. So all this aspect comes under the dosage. Okay, it includes name, dose, frequency, route of administration, duration of therapy. Then there is a term dosage regimen. See, dosage regimen, it is interchangeably used. Often we use dosage and dosage regimen very interchangeably. Then initial dose. What do you mean by initial dose or the loading dose? So initial dose, it is relatively a large dose of a drug that is given at the beginning of a therapy to get the desired pharmacological effect at the earliest. See, very commonly we use it in general anesthetic. See, for example, thiopental sodium. See, thiopental sodium, it is a very commonly used general anesthetic in case of small animals. So what will happen? See, for example, the total dose of thiopental sodium, if it comes around 5 ml. See, if you give or if you inject the whole 5 ml IV to a dog, so dog might collapse on the spot. So you cannot give 5 ml. So what the doctor will do, the physician will do, initially will administer 2 ml. So the animal will be anesthetized at the earliest. So this initial injection of this 2 ml, initial infusion of this 2 ml, it will be called as initial dose or the loading dose. So initial dose or loading dose, it is relatively large dose of a drug that is given at the beginning of the therapy to get the desired pharmacological effect at the earliest. So this 2 ml out of 5 ml will be our initial dose or the loading dose, where at the earliest we are getting the desired pharmacological effect. Similarly, digitalis infusion also. So digitalis infusion, if the total dose is 10 ml, if you give 10 ml at a stretch, so the patient will be collapsed. So for that, so initially you will give 3 ml, check for the effect. So like that, the 3 ml will become the initial dosage or the loading dosage. Then the maintenance dose. Dose that is given during the course of therapy to maintain the desired pharmacological effect produced by the initial dosage. See, for example, 2 ml. What you have given is loading dose. So remaining amount is the 3 ml. So 3 ml, looking at the course of the therapy. So if the patient gets conscious or if in the verge of gaining the consciousness, you push another 1 ml or 0.5 ml. then after some time you push 0.5 ml. So like that 4-5 ml will be instilled into the body. So this dosage will become the maintenance dosage. It is given during the course of the therapy to maintain the desired pharmacological effect. See, we need the desired pharmacological effect, but it's produced by the initial dosage. That is the maintenance dose. Then divided dose or fractional dose. It is a definite fraction of full dose given repeatedly at short intervals so that full dose is administered within a specified period. See, for example, 10 mg. 10 mg is the full dosage. See what we do, the tablet, 5 mg tablet, to take it in the morning, then 5 mg tablet, take it in the evening. So 10 mg is the total dose per day. So what the patient is doing is dividing it in the parts. 5 mg you take it in the morning, 5 mg in the night. So that will become divided dose or fractional dose. Then titrated dose. Dose of a potent drug that is arrived at by titrating it with acceptable degree of adverse drug effect. See, titrated dose. See, for example, antihypertensive drug. See, antihypertensive drug, so straight away you cannot give the higher amount of a drug. So you will start from 5 mg. So you will give 5 mg to the patient. You will look to the effect. See, if it is giving or if it is producing intended pharmacological effect, if it is decreasing the hypertension, then okay, 5 mg is okay. If it is not producing the intended desired effect, then you are increasing this 5 mg to 8 mg. And adverse effect, we'll check for adverse effect also. So 8 mg is also not producing any adverse effect. It is not producing orthostatic hypotension. So okay, then increase it to 10 mg. So it is a titrated dosage. Seeing the effect, you are increasing the dosage. Or you decrease the dosage, seeing the effect. Some steroids initially it will be high dosage, then later on you will decrease the dosage of the steroids. So those doses will become titrated doses to the effect. You see the effect and adverse effect, you tune the dosage accordingly. That will become titrated dose. Then what do you mean by pharmacological effect? Pharmacological effect, it is an intended effect produced by pharmacological action of a therapeutic dose of a drug in the body. See, Dolo 650, you are giving 650 mg. What is the intended effect we need? There should be decrease in the fever. So the set temperature should be decreased. That is the intended effect. That is the pharmacological effect expected out of Dolo 650. Then toxic or adverse effect. It is the undesirable effect produced by a drug that is detrimental to either survival or the normal functioning of the animal. So that is an adverse effect. See, paracetamol, if you are taking if there is long exposure of paracetamol, it will lead to liver damage. That liver damage is an undesirable effect. It's not desirable effect. Who likes to get our own liver get damaged? So it's an undesirable effect. It's produced by a drug that is detrimental to either survival or the normal functioning of the animal. Then there is a side effect. See, side effect, it is also an undesirable effect produced by during producing the intended or pharmacological effect of a drug, which may not be detrimental or harmful to the animal. See, you are using the same paracetamol. Sometimes paracetamol would lead to GIT upset. So that GIT upset, even though it is an undesirable effect, it might not be detrimental or harmful to the animal. So that will become the side effect. Or else minoxidil, I told you, minoxidil is an antihypertensive agent. So along with antihypertensive action, it also increases the air growth. That increase in the air growth is a desirable effect, right? It is not an undesirable effect. For a man, it is a very desirable effect. Every man desires to increase the hair. So that will become a side effect. Okay, that's the difference between an adverse effect and a side effect. Then the next term is withdrawal effect. See, what do you mean by withdrawal effect? So withdrawal effect, it is an effect produced by abrupt discontinuance of a drug, especially an addictive agent, after its long-term treatment. That is the meaning of withdrawal effect, very commonly associated with drugs that are used to treat mental disorders. So in depression condition or any drugs used to treat mental disorders, so you find this withdrawal effect. Our very best example, the perfect example, the prototype example for withdrawal effect is the withdrawal of alcohol. Say alcohol is used for a longer time. Suddenly if you withdraw alcohol for that patient, you cannot tell patient, normal individual also. So if you withdraw suddenly the alcohol, see, withdrawal of alcohol will lead to withdrawal effects. So they will experience the headache, they will experience dizziness, GIT upset. So many withdrawal effects will be related if you obstruct the usage of the medicine. So that is the meaning of withdrawal effect. Then risk benefit ratio. Risk benefit ratio, so it's like a fulcrum of two things, adverse effect and beneficial effect. So if beneficial effect is more than the adverse effect, you will use that drug. If you are using a drug but its adverse effect is more than that of beneficial effect, why to use that drug? You discontinue the use of drug. So while using the drug, always count this risk benefit ratio of using a drug. Then the important term structure activity relationship, abbreviated as SAR. So as the name itself suggests, see, based on the structure, the activity of drug depends. That is the meaning of structure activity relationship. It is a relationship between the structure of a drug and its pharmacological activity. See, it is a study of how chemical alterations to a basic chemical pharmacophore. See, pharmacophore, what do you mean by pharmacophore? It is a basic structure which gives a pharmacological effect that could alter the action of a drug. That is the meaning of structure activity relationship. So the best example for this is, I will take the barbiturates. See, barbiturates are class of drugs which are very commonly used as anesthetics and also as anticonvulsants. So it is a important group of drugs in the veterinary field, barbiturates. See, this barbiturate, it is having a basic structure. The pharmacophore of the barbiturate is the barbituric acid. So barbituric acid is the parent compound of all barbiturates. So its structure will be like this, the barbituric structure. So this is the basic structure. As such, the barbituric acid is inactive. So as such, if you give this structure or if you give this chemical compound to a patient, it does not have any effect. So no effect out of this structure. So once you chemically alter, once you add something to the side chains, once you add something to the R1, R2, or if you add something to the X, then it will start producing the effect. So how chemical alteration to a basic chemical pharmacophore, so this is the pharmacophore, could alter the action of a drug, that we call it as structure activity relationship. See, for the basic thing, this is a barbituric acid. How this barbituric acid activity will be changed when you change the thing, I will tell you. See, for example, barbiturates are classified into ultra short acting barbiturate, short acting barbiturate, long acting barbiturate. So example of ultra short acting, thiopental sodium. If you give thiopental sodium less than 1 minute, its action will be over. That is ultra short acting. The short acting is pentobarbital. Then long acting, for 6 hours this phenobarbital will act. And this variation in the duration of action is related to the variation in the chemical alteration of this basic pharmacophore. See, for example, if you see R1 and R2, see R1, all the drugs is having ethyl group. C2H5, C2H5, C2H5 at the R1. Now R2, at the R2, we are having 5 carbon side chain for thiopental, 5 carbon chain for the pentobarbital, whereas for R2, there is a phenyl group. So what is this R2? This is R2. Okay, at the R2, so these are the side chains. Now at the X, so at the X, for thiopental, so for thiopental, there is a sulfur group. Whereas for pentobarbital, there is an oxygen group. And for a phenobarbital, there is an oxygen group. So what is the difference between thiopental and pentobarbital? R1 same, R2 same, but there is a difference in the insertion of sulfur in X place and O in X place. See, this sulfur, it decreases the duration of action of the thiopental sodium when you compare it with pentobarbital. It is to do with the replacement of sulfur with the oxygen in the pentobarbital. That's why it is ultra short acting. So why phenobarbital is long acting? See, the replacement of phenyl with the 5 carbon side chain. So there is an addition of phenyl group, and at the X there is an oxygen. So here it is long acting. Along with long acting, see, both thiopental and pentobarbital, they are anesthetic. Whereas this phenobarbital, it is long acting, plus since there is addition of phenyl group into the R2 place, so it is having anticonvulsant action also. So this phenobarbital more commonly used as an anticonvulsant rather than an anesthetic. So a slight variation in the basic structure of the barbituric acid, it leads to variation in the action of the drug. So it is the best example for structure activity relationship. So did you understand structure activity relationship? You can quote this as an perfect example. Then assignment questions. So what are the assignment questions? So the study of source identification of drugs from plant sources is called as DASH. DASH is called as study of drug dosage, abbreviate OTC. DASH is an inert drug precursor which produces effect once it enters the body. Genetically determined variation in the response of a drug is called as DASH. Then all medicines are drugs, true or false. Can only medical practitioner or veterinary practitioner serve as clinical pharmacologist, true or false? What is therapeutic drug monitoring? So I have not covered this. So try to dig the answer and write. With example you have to write. What is therapeutic drug monitoring? Then what is drug repurposing? You can quote example. Then define ethnopharmacology. So if I miss any assignment questions in between, you add the assignment questions and give the answer. Thank you.